This is interpreting problem number 11. We'll be interpreting the y-intercept and the slope. So here I'm going to start. There's a lot going on here. So I've calculated my y-intercept. Remember, y-intercept, x is always 0. So look at your work right now. Do you have a coordinate pair for the y-intercept where x is 0, comma, and then we calculated the 460. And how we did that was we substituted 0 in for the x right here, and then solved it. 0 times any number is 0, plus 460 is 460. So our y-intercept is here. Our slope was what I got from a table, and I noticed something. That in the equation is my slope is right there in front of x. So I'm going to kind of write my slope as negative 20 over 1, but I remember I put the change in y over the change in x, which equals m, which is slope. So give yourself a check for that. For the y-intercept, you'll have a check for the 0 and a check for the 460. So now those are two of my problems. So that's one problem that I have to do, and I'll interpret in a minute. Number 2 is I need to find the slope. So number 2 and number 1, and that's these areas right here. So I organize my work nice and neat so that I can find all the information and see the connections between those. My graphing is number 3, so I put that in section number 3 down here. And I've started that, but I wanted to talk through a few of those points again. And the last one says, this is the hardest one of this whole thing. So we'll get to that at the very end. But how many months will there be no perfume? So the no perfume is kind of what popped out. So I'm going to call that section number 4. And notice that I wrote down no perfume. So when I get there, I'll kind of have that information right there. So now I'm going to go to the interpreting. And where's my word interpret? Interpret, I'm going to do in red, my interpreting pen, and that is what is x and y. So I'm going to start with my x, which is months. So I'm going to write down x is months. The y is the number of perfume bottles. So I just don't want to put perfume bottles because it might be colors or anything or something like that. So it's the number of perfume bottles. So I'm going to go to my graph first and label those. So down here on the x is months. The y is number of perfume bottles. I'm going to go to my slope, and y is on top, so it's the negative 20 perfume bottles. And months is my x, and that's on the bottom, so I see that that is the change in x that I wrote down is on the denominator, so I'm going to put months, or 1 month, down there. And remember, with that, we have to write every in here for slope. Slope is always every. My y-intercept, 0 months, and 460 perfume bottles. So we'll write a sentence for each of these. Well, we don't have to do it for the graph, but we'll come back to that. So 0 months, there were 460 perfume bottles. Wait a minute. So that is this, we usually don't just, in street talk, we don't talk 0 months. We say, at the start, which is, for math, we want to put 0 months. So I put that in parentheses to kind of help me remember that the start is 0 months. So if you didn't put that in your work, just put it in, just kind of squeeze it in there in a parentheses right after the start or the beginning. You might have used the word beginning. At the start, 0 months, there were 460 perfume bottles. So now if we go to the slope, I'm going to write down every month, every 1 month. I'm going to put that 1 in there. So if you read yours, if you didn't put 1 month, you just put months, it's fine. You'll still get a check mark or credit for it. But to be very clear about this, put the number 1 right in there. Just squeeze it right in there. 1 month. Every month, the number of perfume bottles goes down 20. Or another way you could say it, every month or every 1 month, they sold 20 perfume bottles or something like that. But the negative, this negative right here, is this down. That's our negative right there. So we need something in there. You can't just say 20 perfume bottles because that would be a kind of a positive, but you have to say something like given away, dropped, lost, shipped out, something like that. I just put down, went down 20 perfume bottles. So now when we go to our graph, remember we used the slope, so we started at 460 and I went down 20 perfume on my y and 1 over on the change in x. So down 20, change in x 1, down 20 to the right 1. Oh, and I found 1 nice crosshairs. And I just kept doing that all the way, using my slope all the way down until, ooh, I found another crosshairs right here. So those are the 2 points that I'm going to use to line up my graph. So that point and this point right here that are at the nice crosshairs. And when we want to find our slope, those are always the ones we want to find and use, are those nice crosshairs ones. Sometimes they're hard to find, but you have to search for them. And it's taking me a while to line these up. There we go. And my points are a little off somewhat, but what I find is that using those 2 points will help us see how some are a little bit above, some are below, but those are those estimate ones. So now if we go to this no perfume, no perfume bottles. Let me put the bottles here. It's bottles. Oh, wait, that is a label. So I'm going to use my label pen, and I should say perfume. I should have this in red, perfume bottles, because that's my label. And if I look at my label up here, it's the Y. So when you have no perfume, that's our number 0. So our Y, which is the perfume ones, is equal to 0. So that's kind of like the last one where it was 70. This is Y in the perfume. So that actually would be this line continuing all the way down when x is 0 on that x-axis right over here somewhere. And that's what we're going to be calculating. We're going to be saying, if this line continued all the way down here, my line's not straight, but if we think of it as being straight all the way down, what number would we put here? And that is when y equals 0. So if we think of that coordinate pair, that means the y is 0, and we call this our x-intercept because it crosses our x-axis. So when y is 0, that's our x-intercept. So in our equation, what is our equation? Y equals negative 20x plus 460, and we'll put that 0 in for the y. I know it'd be easy for the x, but if we put 0 in for x, that would be our y-intercept, which we already calculated. So we're now calculating the other one. So we're just going to now solve this equation by zeroing out the 460, subtract 460 from both sides. So we get negative 460 equals negative 20x. Divide both sides by -20 to cancel that out to equal 1. And when we simplify this, the positive cancels out the positive. The 0, the 10, well, the zeros, I call them zeros, but the 10 divided by 10, so those cancel out, the 10 over 10. And then 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 46 23 times. So that means it's 23 is our x. Now, notice I left a little space there because this is a word problem and we need a label. So x, if I look up here, is months. So it takes 23 months to sell all the perfume bottles or to ship all the perfume bottles out. 20 a month.